put together a palette that is inspired by the colors of Halloween. So I have a purple, violet, a black, an orange that I call pumpkin, and a green. And I want to see what kinds of things I can do with this palette besides the obvious Halloween subjects such as black cats and pumpkins. Probably will paint a pumpkin later. But first of all, I wanted to do a flower. And even though we are quite far from the season of irises, it's hard for me to have purple in my hands and not do something that's iris oriented. I always like to put a little bud of an iris when I paint one, and I'm kind of randomly placing paint in it. And though the style is vaguely reminiscent of Chinese brush painting, obviously my methods and my materials aren't. So then I'm gonna go in with this green, which is I call it verde because I first bought it in Italy, but I have since figured out that what it is green chromium oxide. I love this part. Just putting leaves where you want them to. I always go overboard. Restraint is not my thing. I'm putting some black because I want to use all 4 of these colors in every one of the paintings inspired by this palette. That's my challenge. And not just a drop. Actually use it. So now all that's left is this delightful orange that I named pumpkin, but the pigment when I bought it in Rome is called Herculaneum orange. And pretty happy with this. Very quick, easy. Another brush paint inspired subject that goes well with this color is, of course, grapes. They're kind of seasonal. You can kind of put them wherever you want, be inspired by where the brush wants to go. This violet works well, even though I don't think I've ever seen grapes that are exactly this color. Still. Getting carried away here, which is fun. Okay. Now, I'm gonna do the leaves. I'm gonna put a leaf down here for fun. A bit of a leaf down here. I'm working with Strathmore watercolor cards, and they're artist quality, kind of, meaning that they're acid free, 140 pounds, but they are not cotton. Rather, they are cellulose, so made from trees, I think that means. Doing the little branches. What does that mean? Well, I don't know if it's due to that or to the sizing, but this paper, oh, I like that. This paper lifts really easily. So you just have to know that and use it. But I also like what it's doing to the, it aids the granulation, I think. So I like it. I don't like it as much as I like arches, and there's plenty of things for which this paper wouldn't work so well. But for some things it works, and it's nice that you have a ready-to-go card later, since the cards come with matching envelopes. So this one is done. Now normally real Chinese painting doesn't do this kind of layering. I think a little bit, but I'm not doing that. I love how that orange mixed there, so I'm gonna try and do that here too. Green is notoriously a color that benefits from being mixed with others rather than a proverbial straight from the tube. There is no tube here because my handmade watercolors don't come in tubes, but I think you get the idea. Straight from the maker, I guess. So I have painted this kind of grape before without doing a second layer, and that was fine. But there were some funny watermarks that I wasn't crazy about here. So I'm gonna add some purple to the black for variety. And why not do another layer while we're here? I find this kind of brushwork very rewarding. That's it. I'm going to leave it like this. It's happy, it's colorful, it uses all four colors. Now this iris can also use a little bit of oomph. So I'm going to start with some black here. And again, I made a lot of cards with irises. I have a friend who really likes them and she commissions me, so sometimes I make like 10 at a time. And I don't usually do a second layer. But here I feel like I should. Don't you love how the black and the green mingled? Now the problem is, having gone over the rest, I should probably go over that a little bit. So I'm gonna do it with a very watered down black, because the green is pretty assertive already. So I think the black can use. And here it goes. I'm gonna stop. Just this tiny bit extra I think was helpful. Actually, I'm not gonna stop. I'm gonna put a little black down here. Done. I wanted to try and do a more traditional layered landscape with these Halloween palette. See if that's possible, even with such a limited and objectively rather unusual palette. We have a purple instead of a blue. We have a orange instead of a yellow. But, you know, you never know what you can get with unusual colors. So the beauty of this is that it's not live. So if you see it, it means I was pleased with it. If not, if I'm not pleased with it, no one needs to know. So this is going to be a landscape of Vermont, and I'm getting ready for the foreground, which is going to be grass. So I took advantage of this first layer to start with that. Then some of my pumpkin. More grass. Some of these are granulating colors, so I like moving the paper around to encourage that granulation. It's a little bit tricky mixing orange and purple, because the orange has a lot of yellow, and purple of course is a complement of yellow, so then you end up with gray. But these colors are so bright that I think I can handle some graying without an appreciable loss of brightness. Let's see what happens. This is something I really like to do. I just plop color in and then see what it does when it interacts with other colors. Look at the beautiful granulation. This is the back of an Amalfi paper that I didn't dare throw out. I think before I go too dark on the very first layer, I'm going to let this dry and then come back. This is neither a photo nor an original design, alas, but a print, an old print that was in this free photo website that I copied from. I just wanted to see and find different ways of using these same paints, because I like the challenge, right? I mean, if you have the exact same color for exactly what you need to do, it's not as much of a challenge. I know one could say life is difficult already. Why make it more difficult with art? And you don't have to do this, but I thought it would be fun. only do it if it's fun. There's really no reason to watercolor paint if you don't enjoy it, because it's certainly not going to make you rich. And all its other benefits, such as mental health and relax, and those things probably won't happen if you're not enjoying it to begin with. So I'm using the straight pumpkin here. Watered down for the moon, less watered down for the eyes, beak, and claws. And even though I could take some more risks, I think I'm going to let this dry before going any further. I want to create a brown of sorts, and for that I mix carefully and repeatedly the orange with the green. That's kind of a cute brown. It works. I haven't really thought it through though, because now that I have a brown tree, I gotta figure out what color my owls are going to be, 'cause it'd be kind of repetitive if I have them be brown too. I'm gonna put some black here for variety. So, I think I'm going to make the sky a nice purple, which leaves me with, need some mixing area, leaves me with black, gray owls, which frankly sounds great. There's not a lot of green in this painting so far, other than just as a mix for creating the brown. That's fine. Owls are very popular. You see them a lot on the internet. Or maybe I just have a lot of friends who like them, so they appear frequently. And I seem to see a lot of pictures from a page called Parliament of Owls. And I believe that that's one way of referring to a group of owls, a flock of owls is called a parliament of owls. English has these amazing collective nouns for animals. I think they're called venery nouns, and it's a word that means hunting. So maybe that's where they come from. Though I don't know who would hunt crows. But I know that for crows, the collective name is a murder of crows. Isn't that cool? Parliament of owls. A murmuration of starlings. Oh, these are cute. I'm going to start working a little bit on the eye. Mostly remembered to leave. Oh! Just as I said it. Leaving the white is always a bit of a challenge. Very grateful for the existence of white gel pens, which of course are not allowed in traditional watercolor. She's kind of funny looking. Every time there's a pear or something, I always think of me and my husband, and so I always make one taller and skinnier and one shorter and chubbier. So I'm gonna let this dry and then go in for the sky. So I have this sky all nice and dry, and I'm going to do a line of mountains. I always want to just do camel's hump, but I'm trying to be a little bit more varied, less predictable. So because I like so much the mixture of the violet and the pumpkin, I'm sticking with it here. There's going to be a row of very dark trees, but in the meantime, I want to add some color to the foreground. Do a little bit of variety here, even though it's getting not that pleasant looking. I'm okay with gray, I'm not okay with mud. So I think the trick is to decide on one color to dominate where. So here I'm leaving the orange, and then here the violet. Don't let them fight too much for attention, and everybody's happy. So I'm gonna let this dry before going in with a layer of blackish. Here's to remind me some black trees. Oh well, I didn't really mean for it to go in the front, but it's not a bad idea actually. Let's try. It'll provide some unity. Great. I'm gonna let this dry. My next step here is to do a sky, which, as I anticipated, will be purple. This is kind of a tight piece. My preferred style of painting is a bit looser. This is more illustration style. But I like it. You gotta change things up a bit. And in the other piece I'm working on with this palette, I let someone improbably the purple or violet and the orange mix, and it worked, despite the fact that they're similar and potentially would gray each other out, and they do a little bit, but look, these colors are so bright. I don't think there's any danger. Speaking of bright, I might as well go brighter here. Brighter and a little bit layered. Not too crazy about these edges. So I'm strengthening them. Sometimes if you don't like something, instead of trying to detract attention from it, you could just increase attention to it and kind of revel in its craziness, which is what I'm doing here. Okay, so what do we want still? We want a tiny bit more orange in the eyes. And might as well do it here too. Now see what's happening on the bottom? I'm pretending not to notice, but it's not pretty. Alright, so the books tell you to just ignore it, but I can't. So instead, since the area is kind of limited, instead of ignoring it, I'm gonna heighten this one too. So, living dangerously. Let's see what happens. See what happens is there's areas that are faster and slower at drying. That's what the problem is here. We need to work a little bit more. See here, I made a mess again by adding water. And I really would recommend you just wait, because I'm likely to just cause more of a problem. But I have a hard time waiting. Let's let this dry before some last touches. But meanwhile, we have our landscape. And here, what I'm going to add with black, which many watercolorists frown on, because the idea is that there are better, more interesting ways of achieving darks. And can't argue with that. But I like my black. And I'm trying to make it interesting by adding other colors to it. And here too, I'm going to heighten this and also make it blend a little bit. With the row of trees. And even as I maintain a certain separation, I like it if in some spots those black trees come into the foreground. I'm going to let this dry before one last assessment of it. So we have a few things to do here, but I would like this to be the last pass. I'm brightening up this very large moon. We had lost some of this brightness when the purple night encroached. I also want to give a little bit more texture to the tree, and I did again a mixture of green and orange with a little bit of black. So I'm going over the branches a little bit with this mixture. The night, I think I'm gonna leave like this. It's not perfect, but I like the layers, how they came out. We need to do a little bit more work on those owls. Let's see. Maybe I like the light, I was going to say the light black, I meant, I guess, the gray at the top of the head. And so I want to try and save that. This, I think, is supposed to be the legs. It's a bit of a negative painting. I also would like the two owls to look a little different, like complementary but different. So just like this one is dark here, I'm gonna make this one the opposite. Even though maybe it's not zoologically correct. I'm gonna make this one darker at the top and lighter. I'm using a teeny tiny brush just because I'm not crazy of tiny brushes, but sometimes you need them. This is a very inexpensive brush. I like this series of brushes a lot. It's a Low Cornell. They have different sizes. I mostly use the bigger sizes, but they're all kind of, they respond nicely and they last a long time, and they don't involve the destruction of small animals. And again, though I'm not an animal activist and I eat meat, I don't really see the need to cut up little animals to get me brushes when, maybe if that was the only way to get brushes, I wouldn't mind. But it isn't. And these other brushes work quite well. I'm tempted to do something fun with put a little bit of purple here, just for fun. It's very light, you can barely tell what it is. But you can think of it as the night kissing the owls. A little bit of the claws. And before I mess it up too much, I'm gonna call it done. Just a little bit of a Halloween presence through a bird that everybody seems to love. I'm gonna let this dry. And finally, the last layer on this. It's beginning to lose some transparency, so we definitely want to finish this. And we're going to finish with some very thin black. And here I'm working in a little bit of powerful color. Here a little bit more of the powerful color. A little bit of black. last layer of this chromium green that I love so much. And it is finished. I would be remiss not to paint the simplest and most iconic symbol of fall, which is, of course, a pumpkin. Given that my orange color is called pumpkin, be a shame not to include some a small piece of khadi paper from India. It's a handmade cotton paper and it's quite rough, which for this style can work surprisingly well. It's not typical with this style of painting to have shadows, but I just want to show you the beautiful violet. So that's why I have it. And I'll use it too to darken the side here. And I'm going to just write with the black, since I don't want to make too much of a mess by adding too many colors. A little greeting. It's not very heartfelt, alas, because I don't really care about Halloween very much. But I do like the colors that are associated with it. So you gotta look for something good in things. And here is the Halloween palette. Violet, pumpkin, verde, green, and noir black. Thank you for watching.